Thank you. No, I'm just kidding. I gotta have some fun because this is exciting stuff. Let me get my notes together here, just one sec. Patience, your remarks were incredible, as usual. And I'm gonna do something before I look at my prepared remarks. If you are running for any kind of office, I don't care if it's dog catcher, just stand up. Just stand up if you're running. And the reason I want you to stand up is simply because I want you to see this housing community, and I want the housing community to see you, because this is the crisis of the day, of the hour, of the year. Thank you for your public service, your commitment to it. Thank you. 35 years, Housing Development Consortium. That is awesome. And it's fitting that the key theme of today's event is partnership and collaboration, because that's exactly the kind of one Seattle approach that you hear me talking about we're going to need if we're going to make the kind of transformative progress that we need in this housing crisis. I remember as a kid living in the Central District with my parents in a duplex, 16th and Cherry Street, sort of near where the hospitals are. And when the phone would ring, we had what was known as a party line. Now, some of you with a little gray hair knows what a party line. That means the people next door, we lived in a duplex, they'd answer the phone the same time we'd answer the phone. You never know what was going to happen. My parents were in their 20s. They were Garfield graduates. And I remember when they were able to buy their first home on 24th and Olive in the Central District for $6,000. But I remember the joy that they had as a young biracial couple with a couple kids, of not having to listen to that darn party line, number one, but in terms of stability, a home. Now, times have changed. So whether you're looking for a place to stay where the average rent in Seattle is $2,600 for a two-bedroom apartment, you're considering becoming a homeowner and looking at a down payment of over $100,000, we're seeing the worst outcomes of our housing crisis, people living unsheltered on our streets. You don't have to be an expert or a rocket science to recognize this issue has worsened. Seattle, in our area in King County, should be a place where everyone can afford to live, whether they're a teacher, a barista, a student, a hospitality worker, a senior, or a young family like my mom and dad. We want you in our city. It's as simple as that. As I took office, I instructed my team to look at every possible way to increase housing production. Whether we founded a housing sub-cabinet, we reorganized how the city does business, we eliminated design review on affordable housing projects, and we proposed new legislation balancing the protection and equitable canopy tree restoration with needed housing development, because we know that trees are the lungs of the earth and we wanted to have that right balance. In our budget, we funded the single largest investment in affordable housing of its kind, $250 million, to show our commitment to this crisis that all of you know so well. Now, we recognize that this crisis can't be solved in one single year or one single budget cycle. It can't be solved by one city or even one county alone. We recognize that. But as Patience said, if we come together with a shared commitment in our lifetime, in this day, today, we can make a difference. That's what our housing levy is all about. The city's proven solution for delivering thousands of affordable housing options, and quite candidly, the single most important housing policy our team will advance this year. Now, a number of you served on our technical advisory committee. We rubbed elbows and, jockeyed for position, all with the shared commitment to help those who weren't even in the room. Our subject matter experts, our housing leaders, our housing advocates, our service providers, our representative for workers and for businesses, helping design the levy with our Office of Housing, and I have members of our Office of Housing on my cabinet here today. My guidance and my vision was very simple, and plain terms, we have to go big. We have to be bold. We have to put something on the ballot that allows our Seattle communities to be part of the solution, and ambitious and achievable, a plan that meets the moment and the scale of this housing crisis, and does more than simply prevent homelessness. So I need you to understand the heart that went into this, because it wasn't just mine, it was the people in this room. And that's why today I'm announcing that our proposal for this levy will be a $970 million housing levy. 970. Now that's a bold investment. That's a bold investment that reflects our city's combined urgency and the understanding of the challenge in front of us. It's more than tripling the size of the levy, because that's what the need is. Everyone in this room that can hear my voice knows that the housing is about more than bricks and steel. It's about people. You know, one of my favorite R&B artists, I have to go R&B sometime, I find inspiration from it, is Luther Vandross. And he said, "A house is not a home." Do-do-do-do-do. See, some of you guys know that little tune. A house is not a home. It goes beyond brick and mortar, this work that we're all trying to do as a community. I'm not going to sing Luther Vandross. That's all I'm going to do. But I'd like to share you a story about Maria. Maria is a resident of the historic Bush Hotel, a levy-funded affordable housing building in the Chinatown International District. She was born in the Philippines and lived in California before moving to Seattle. She started working at Nikkei Manor. Many of you know that, a senior living community in the CID, and loved the neighborhood, and so much that she decided she wanted to live there too. But fortunately, Maria was able to find affordable housing at the Bush Hotel, where she's lived for over a decade. Maria volunteers around the neighborhood, and she enjoys meeting and interacting with the elders. The fact is, there are over 16,000 neighbors and families like Maria living in levy-supported housing right now. 16,000 families with a safe place to grow and learn and rest and play. And so when I call the housing levy a proven solution, that's why, because of Maria and stories like Maria. It's why we'll be investing $750 million toward developing over 3,000 new affordable homes, both rental and home ownership in this levy, 3,000 affordable homes. Thank you for that applause. And I know you're not applauding for me, you're applauding for the words that I said, because this is good stuff. The housing levy addresses the crisis of homelessness from multiple angles. Everyone deserves housing. And I've said publicly that a tent outdoors without proper sanitation, without proper heat, without running water in these inclement conditions, is not a safe place for anyone to call home. So frankly, we know that the best way to address homelessness is to prevent people from becoming homeless in the first place. That's why our proposal increases this resource by 250%. I hear that clap, by the way. 250% increase, an investment of $30 million to keep people in their homes and off the streets. Now, my administration is committed to getting people into safe, stable homes with access to services and a pathway to recovery. You hear me sometimes talk about the term self-optimization. I know it sounds fancy, but I believe that when we wake up, we want to optimize who and what we could be. That's why I say it's more than brick and mortar. We know that the workers providing these critical services are among the hardest working, the most committed, and of course, the most under-resourced in our society, in our communities. I earlier talked to Ladidra. Take Ladidra Stallworth, for example. Ladidra is a residential counselor who's worked at DESC for 10 years supporting those living in permanent supportive housing. She lives in Lakewood and commutes by bus because of course, how expensive it is to live in Seattle, and it was an honor to meet her family as well. She works at the Lion Building downtown. She administers a life-saving Narcan, and many of you are familiar with that, and CPR to patients. In fact, she once did this during her lunch break. She happened to walk by a person in crisis, and because she carries the Narcan on a keychain, she was able to administer it. Every day, Ladidra helps vulnerable clients from the street, collaborating with firefighters and police to create community and connection. Ladidra is strong and resilient and says she likes taking the bus, but to recruit and retain workers to staff these services, we must advance policies and ensure adequate wages that allow these workers to live in the community they serve. If I could stop for a minute, thank you. Ladidra, where are you? Where are you? I know I saw you earlier. Thank you. There she is right there. I'm pointing at her and her wonderful family. Have your husband stand up too. There you go. My man, there you go. All right. Give the drummer some, as we say. The fact is, we can't lose workers like Ladidra. We can't. That's why our proposal invests $34 million in a worker stabilization fund, real resources dedicated to raising wages and doing our part to support the people who help our neighbors most in need. Now, this is a first of its kind program. No prior levy has made such an explicit commitment to support workers. Now, we designed this proposal to work hand in hand with the other local taxes like the Jumpstart payroll expense tax, the county-wide tools like the critical care services levy and the Veterans, Seniors, and Human Services levy. Collectively, we can drive system-wide changes to tackle the region's housing and homelessness crisis head-on. And the last thing I'll say is that this levy allows us to address the issue with a focus on equity, to look at the displacement pressures that have impacted too many longstanding neighbors and communities of color, along with the lack of access to generational wealth opportunities. Housing is an equity building tool, full stop, an equity building tool. Take Levi, Nicole, and their children, Briella and Bodie, for example. And I had a chance to meet and chat with Nicole a little earlier. They recently moved into a Copper Pines, a Habitat for Humanity development in Loyal Heights. And Levi is a proud member of the Chippewa Cree tribe, grew up without stable housing and always wanted to give his kids a better life. Working in the hospitality and service industry, Levi and Nicole saved for years to affordable house, only to be constantly outbid by people with more resources, until they were selected for Copper Pines in North Seattle, which is a levy-funded affordable housing project, and meant they could provide a stable home for their kids without worrying about moving again, or if the rent went up, or the landlord chose to sell the house. Levi is the first in his family to own his home. Now, there are hundreds more will have that opportunity in our proposal. And that's why we have $51 million in investments in affordable home ownership. The time is now to go big, to meet the moment. You heard me say, forget small ball, you got to swing for the fences. Now, I have to recognize, when I talk about swinging for the fences, that today is the opening day for the Mariners. And when I played baseball, they said, swing for the fences. They said, don't swing for the fences, just make contact. That's probably why I struck out all the time. I was always swinging for the fences. But in all seriousness, we need to swing for the fences. The housing levy is the tool that we can count on to make a difference, not just by building units, but by giving people a place to call home. Working together, I'm confident we can do this work together. You have dedicated your lives, your resources, your commitment, your faith, everything that you've brought into this world to this work. And I'm looking forward to getting this across the finish line with you. And as Patience tells me to wind up by just standing there patiently, she's not going to rob this moment from me, because we are swinging for the fences and we're going to win. One Seattle.